Good morning. Good morning, everyone. And it's good to see you all here today. Um, so in recent weeks, we've been talking about, the general topic of an attitude of universal kindness or friendliness. And the Buddha's insistence on the importance of this practice. Well, the practice of universal kindness or friendliness would be, of course, much easier if it were universally practiced, if everyone were making an attempt to be kind and friendly to all beings. But we know that's not the case. So what about situations where people are unkind, unfriendly, or even abusive? What do you do with that? Well, the early Buddhist teachings are very clear on that. And they're illustrated by this story that comes from the Jataka tales. The stories about the past lives of the Buddha. When the Buddha assumed various forms, various personages, Buddha might be a prince, or he might be, you know, um, a sea captain, or he might be an animal of some sort, a turtle, elephant. This story, Jataka 278, goes as follows. This story the master told at Jetavana about a certain impertinent monkey. At Savatthi, we are told, was a pet monkey in a certain family, and it ran into the elephant's stable and perched on the back of a virtuous elephant. Annoying him, it began to walk up and down on his back, pulling his tail, grabbing his ears, swinging on his tusks. The elephant, being both virtuous and patient, did nothing. But one day, in this elephant's place, stood a different elephant, a rogue elephant. The monkey thought it was the same elephant and climbed upon its back. The elephant seized him in his trunk, dashed him down, and trod him into the ground. Well, this at the time became known to the monks, and they all began to talk about it. Brother, they said, have you heard how the impertinent monkey mistook a bad elephant for a good one and climbed on his back, and how he lost his life for it? Well, in came the master, and he asked, brethren, what are you talking about? And when they told him, he said, this is not the first time that this impertinent monkey behaved so. He did the same thing before. And then he told this tale. Once upon a time, when Brahma-dutta was king of the Bihaves, the Bodhisattva, this is the former life of the Buddha, was born in the Himalayas region as a buffalo. He grew up big and strong, and ranged the hills and mountains. Well, once he saw a pleasant tree and took his food standing under it. And then an impertinent monkey came down out of the tree, got on his back, and then he took hold of one of the buffalo's horns and swung down from it by his tail, disporting himself. The Bodhisattva, being full of patience, kindliness, and mercy, took no notice at all of the misconduct of the monkey. This the monkey did again and again. But one day, the spirit that belonged to this tree asked him, saying, "My Lord Buffalo, why do you put up with this rudeness of this bad monkey? Put a stop to him." And enlarging on this theme, the tree spirit said these verses: "Why do you patiently endure such prank? This mischievous, selfish ape may play. Crush underfoot, transfix him with your horn. Stop him now, even children's may scorn." The Bodhisattva, on hearing this, replied to the tree spirit, "If I cannot endure this monkey's ill treatment without abusing his birth, lineage, and powers, how can my wish ever come to fulfillment? But the monkey will do the same to another, thinking him to be like me. And if he does it to any fierce buffaloes, they will destroy him indeed. When some other has killed him, I shall be delivered both from pain and from the guilt of killing." And saying this, he repeated a third verse: "If he treats others as he now treats me, they will destroy him, but I shall be free." Well, a few days after, the Bodhisattva went elsewhere, and another buffalo, a savage beast, went and stood in his place. The wicked monkey, thinking it was the other one, climbed upon his back and did as before. The buffalo shook him off on the ground and drove his horn into the monkey's heart and trampled him underfoot. When the master had finished his story, he declared the truths and identified the birth. The savage buffalo was he who is now the rogue elephant. The impertinent monkey is the very same. But the virtuous, patient buffalo was I myself. So the savage buffalo became the rogue elephant. The patient, virtuous buffalo became the Buddha, escaping the cycle of suffering. The impertinent monkey stayed the same, repeating the cycle again and again. So that's the story. So these Jataka stories can be viewed in various ways. I think most people view them as fables of sorts, similar to Aesop's fables, like a morality fable. But there are a couple themes that are clear in this. One is that virtue and the precepts trump retribution. That maintaining one's virtue, one's character, is more important than achieving immediate justice. And another theme in this is the theme of karma or kama, cause and effect. The point being that you do not need to mete out your own justice, because in a sense, the consequences of one's behavior depend on that behavior. In a sense, the chickens will come home to the roost, or what goes around comes around, as we might say. And when there are wholesome actions, they lead to favorable outcomes. Unwholesome leads to unfavorable outcomes. This is summarized again. It comes up again and again and again in the early Buddhist teachings, but at the very beginning of the Dhammapada, there are these two themes. Mind is the forerunner of all actions. All deeds are led by mind, created by mind. If one speaks or acts with a corrupt mind, suffering follows, as the wheel follows the hoof of an ox pulling a cart. Mind is the forerunner of all actions. All deeds are led by mind, created by mind. If one speaks or acts with a serene or peaceful mind, happiness follows as surely as one's shadow. He abused me, mistreated me, defeated me, robbed me. Harboring such thoughts keeps hatred alive. He abused me, mistreated me, defeated me, robbed me. Releasing such thoughts banishes hatred for all time. So the teachings of the Buddha stress maintaining virtues as the core teaching of morality, maintaining the precepts. And there really isn't much mention of, or any mention of, justice or rights. In the West, the theories of justice and rights have been given substantial attention, and they're an important part of our culture, but not so much in the Buddhist teachings, at least the earliest Buddhist teachings. Any concept of justice is sort of left to the universe. That a virtuous mind leads to virtuous actions, leads to favorable outcomes. And an unvirtuous mind leads to unwholesome actions and unfavorable outcomes. It's interesting that reflections of this sort may be seen in a very well-known quote of Dr. Martin Luther King, when he said, "The arc of the moral universe is long, but it bends toward justice." Really appealing to his followers to be patient. And actually, Dr. King, being very well read, was condensing and summarizing in a very nice way a writing of Theodore Parker, a 19th century Unitarian minister. who in 1833 wrote, "I do not pretend to understand the moral universe. The arc is a long one. My eye reaches but little ways. I cannot calculate the curve and complete the figure by experience of sight. I can divine it by conscience, and from what I see, I am sure it bends toward justice." Reverend Parker was a very well-known New England abolitionist in the early 18th century. He died shortly before the Civil War. Actually, he took a more militant stance towards the end of his life and supported John Brown's raid. So this emphasis on maintaining one's virtuous nature in order to arrive at awakening is very solidly placed in the early Buddhist teachings. And as if to sort of pound the thing home, the Buddha in one of his suttas said, "Monks, even if bandits were to carve you up savagely, limb by limb, with a two-handed saw, he among you who let his heart get angered even at that would not be doing my bidding. Even then you should train yourselves. Our minds will be unaffected, and we will say no evil words. We will remain sympathetic with a mind of goodwill and with no inner hate. We will keep pervading these people with an awareness imbued with goodwill, and beginning with them, we will keep pervading the all-encompassing world with an awareness imbued with goodwill. Abundant, expansive, immeasurable, free from hostility, free from ill will. That is how you should train yourselves." I think here the Buddha was clearly using the heuristic of exaggeration. I don't think he really expected people to maintain goodwill, or maybe he did, toward those who were sawing off their limbs at the time. But in any case, the message is clear. So in early Buddhism, there was this laser sharp focus on maintenance of sila, morality, with the goal of individual salvation, personal salvation. Well, this might seem to leave something out. What about concern for others, for their awakening, for their welfare in a way? And that, I think, was part of the seed of the evolution of Mahayana Buddhism and the archetype of the Bodhisattva. He or she who is unwilling to rest in full awakening until everyone else can join him or her, until we can all awaken together, and until such time to work in the effort of awakening all beings. So how do we do that? That's something for more discussion, and we'll bring it up next week and discuss Dogen's condensation of the four guidances of the Bodhisattva, a short teaching that condenses prior Mahayana teachings from China. So we'll discuss that next week. So in America, in the 21st century, what do we think of a story like this about the elephant, the buffalo, the Buddha? What do we make of it? What resonates? Is there dissonance as you hear this teaching? So we'll discuss. I'll leave it at that, and we'll go into breakout rooms. I did want to mention one thing before we stop, and that is that 3 weeks from today, Carola and I have been invited to an event, so we will not be having a session 3 weeks from today on Saturday. But the following day, the following Sunday, which is the 11th of June, is Vesak Day at Mid-America Buddhist Association. And I will be giving a talk there along with Master Jiru giving a talk. So, and they'll also have like a lunch and some celebration of Vesak Day. So if you are familiar with Mid-America Buddhist Association, MABA in Augusta, you'll have a vision of what I'm talking about. If you're unfamiliar with it, check out their website and make a trip. It's takes a little time to get there from here, but it's not too bad. It's a very pretty drive once you get off the highways. So we'll stop there, go into breakout rooms. Thank you very much for listening today.